Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're diving into the huge changes coming with Hyper-V in Windows Server 2025. And let me tell you, this is not just some little update. People are calling it a truly historic release. So let's get into why. I mean, just look at this. The phrase you keep hearing is that this is the biggest update for Hyper-V in a decade. Now that is a bold statement. So what on earth did Microsoft do to justify that kind of hype? Let's find out. All right, first, just a super quick refresher to make sure we're all on the same page. Hyper-V, at its core, is the magic that lets you take one big physical server and slice it up into lots of smaller, totally separate virtual machines. It's really the engine behind so much of modern IT. Okay, so the first big story here is all about scale. And I mean, a mind-boggling leap in scale. We're talking about getting that true cloud-level hardware power, but right inside your own server room, ready for the gnarliest AI and database jobs you can throw at it. And when I say the scale is massive, I am not kidding. Get ready for this number. The new Hyper-V can support up to 4 petabytes of RAM on one single host. Yeah, you heard that right. That's 4,000 terabytes. It's an absolutely insane amount of memory designed for the kinds of databases and AI models that were just unthinkable before. And of course, with all that memory, you need the horsepower to go with it. So it also supports up to 2,048 logical processors on that same host. The amount of raw compute power you can now cram into a single box is just, wow. So what does this actually mean for you? Well, it means you can stop thinking about these giant workloads as something you can only do in the public cloud. You can now run those huge AI models, those mission-critical databases, right there on your own hardware, all on one machine. We're talking less complexity, less overhead, and just a monster amount of power at your fingertips. But it's not all about brute force. This update is also about being smarter with your resources, making things way more flexible and efficient. We've all been there, right? You've got these incredibly powerful and incredibly expensive GPUs. But in a virtual world, that expensive card is often just locked to one VM, sitting around doing nothing most of the time. It's such a waste. Well, say hello to GPU partitioning, or GPU-P. This is one of the absolute standout features. It lets Hyper-V literally slice up a physical GPU and share out those pieces to a bunch of different VMs. That whole underutilization problem, gone. So where is this a total game changer? Well, think about VDI. You can now give tons of users a really smooth, graphics-accelerated experience from just one card. Or for AI, you can run a whole bunch of different models at the same time. At the end of the day, you're finally getting your money's worth out of that expensive hardware. And speaking of making things easier, let's talk about clustering. For years, if you wanted a high-availability Hyper-V setup, you absolutely had to have Active Directory. It was just another layer of complexity to manage. Well, not anymore. With workgroup clusters, you can build out a resilient cluster with no AD dependency at all. This is huge for smaller setups or edge computing. And hey, on top of all that, live migration, the feature that lets you move a running VM from one host to another with zero downtime, that's gotten a nice upgrade too. It's faster and more solid, especially if you're using those fancy new high-speed networks. Okay, we've covered the massive scale and the smart new efficiencies. Now let's talk about the very foundation of your VMs, because Microsoft is making a really important change here by making Generation 2 VMs the new standard. Now, you can still run your old Genuine machines, but from now on, any new VM you spin up is going to be Gen 2 by default. And this is more than just a settings change. It's about building a fundamentally more secure and more powerful virtual environment right from the start. So what's the big deal with Gen 2? Well, it creates this awesome chain of modern features. It all starts with UEFI firmware, which replaces the old clunky BIOS. That UEFI boot lets you have boot disks bigger than 2 terabytes. But more importantly, it makes secure boot possible, which protects your VM from nasty stuff like rootkits before the OS even loads. And because you have secure boot, you can have a virtual TPM, which then lets you use powerful tools like BitLocker inside the VM. See? It's all connected. Phew. Okay, so we've seen the power, the smarts, the secure new foundation. Now for the really practical bit. What do you actually need to have in place to make all this magic happen? So are you ready to make the jump? Before you start drawing up those deployment plans, there are a couple of hardware requirements that are non-negotiable. Okay, here's the checklist. Your server's CPU has to support hardware virtualization. That's either Intel's VTX or AMD's AMD-V. And this is the big one, it must also support second-level address translation, also known as SLAT. Now, most modern server CPUs have this, but you absolutely have to check before you even think about upgrading. And that pretty much covers the highlights. We've seen the cloud-level scale, the super smart GPU sharing, and that secure by default Gen 2 foundation. So the question I want to leave you with is this. With this much power and this much flexibility, what are you going to build? What new doors is this going to open up in your world?